Yes, that's right. It's a second version, the second edition of Heavy Lifting. Theo the Juggernaut with you actually, and along with me is our good pal from NHL Discussion on Instagram, Anthony. Good evening, Anthony. Thanks for sitting down. The eve of round one will begin tomorrow. The eight matchups are all set up, ready to rock and roll. How are you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing really good. It's the best time of the year, isn't it?
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Absolutely. We got playoffs. We got draft lottery to talk about. We'll touch base on both of those. It's a full NHL squad, NHL ideal today. Looking forward to the whiteouts tomorrow. It's absolutely beautiful outside, a balmy 4 degrees. A little bit of snow today and tomorrow. So typical whiteout weather for Winnipeg Jets. Well, they will take on the St. Louis Blues. We will touch base on those later on. But let's get on to the other first round matchups. I know we'll talk about your Leafs versus the Bruins. What should we start with the Eastern Conference? Let's talk about the best team of the league. Absolutely, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They were a runaway team all year. And, I mean, they're taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. We're playing pretty decent. The several picks or the several players they were able to get at the trade deadline kind of coming through, kind of not coming through. I know we talked about Dzingel and Duchesne starting to light up, but I think it's been a Bobrovsky show, especially in the last 11 or 12 games of the regular season. Do you see Columbus having an opportunity here, Anthony, to sneak away with a victory, or it's going to be a 4-0 sweep? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, when you say victory, that's certainly not the series. I think you'd be talking about one game there, but I think Bobrovsky's going to be able to steal one game for them, but any more, I think that's pushing it. You got to feel for Columbus because they've got a really good team. They've got a good decor. They've got Werenski. They've got Jones. They're amazing defensemen. They've got some real good players up front, Panarin, and they traded for Duchesne. They went all in this year. They go on, and now they have to play Tampa Bay. I mean, that's really rough, but yeah, I think they're hoping for a couple wins. You never know what happens. They're going in hot. Tampa hasn't really played meaningful hockey for a couple of weeks, or really since January. They knew that they were going to be in the playoffs, so maybe they can catch them napping for a game or two, but certainly not for the whole series.
You're absolutely correct, and I think the key for Tampa Bay will be whether or not Victor Hedman will play, or is he going to play decently, or will they try to rest him as much, knowing that they're playing an 8th seed in Columbus? I mean, he is the reigning Norris Trophy winner. He should be up for the trophy again this year, again with this amazing season. But I think you're right. I mean, Tampa has far too much firepower, and unless Bobrovsky stands on his head, his shoulders, and everything, I can see it being a 4 or 5 game series, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think so too. They said today that Hedman should be back for game one, but even if he's only 80 or 90% Victor Hedman, they've got so much depth that really it shouldn't affect their chances or their production much. I mean, they were without Vasilevsky for about a 20-game stretch earlier in the season, and it didn't seem to affect them at all. They just kept winning, and I think Hedman will be back up to 100%, maybe second or third round in the playoffs, and I think Tampa can roll until then.
Absolutely. And you talk about backup goaltenders. I mean, Devin Dubnyk made the switch several years back from Edmonton and Minnesota, and he's fit in extremely well. And Domingue was an absolutely no goalie in Arizona, and he had a record, I think, this year of like 22-6 or 21-6 as a backup for Tampa. So, I mean, they know their goaltending will be stellar once Vasilevsky gets in the net full time, but, I mean, they've got a pretty good backup in there to help out, and not to mention all the firepower in the top 3 lines for the Lightning. So, looks like it should be an easy win for them in the first round. Then we look at the next set of games in the Eastern Conference. Washington, I mean, you talk about Columbus kind of feels sorry for them. It's either they're going to play Tampa or Washington. And they got the bigger juggernaut of the two. But the Capitals are taking on the Hurricanes. And, I mean, the Hurricanes are that kind of happy-go-lucky team that if they're in, they're happy. If they win, they got their storm parties and whatnot going on. I mean, Ovechkin loves playing in the playoffs. He is that Rocket Richard winner. And Braden Holtby hasn't played stellar hockey, but we know that he did amazing in the Stanley Cup Finals. He probably could return to that same form here quickly for the Capitals.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing. You touched on Ovechkin winning Rock Richard for the 8th time. That's the most all-time. Not even Gretzky did that. I think that's pretty amazing. But for Washington, really, it's a bit of a lopsided match here. They won the Cup last year. They've got experience. They've got absolutely everything. Defense, Carolina has a really good defense, but Washington has way more stars and talent up front. They've got Holtby and net, while the Hurricanes, they've kind of got a platoon thing going between Curtis McElhinney and Peter Mrazek. Can they trust them to win playoff games? I'm not so sure. And really, the defending champs, they should move on in 5 or 6 games against the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. The season series for the Capitals was 4-0. I mean, they clearly were the much better team throughout the year, and I think the proof is in the pudding there. They're going to continue to roll against Carolina. The closer the 4 series, I think, in the Eastern Conference is the next one we'll talk about. The Islanders and the Penguins. The series was 2-1 and 1 for the Islanders, but they're on the fence. If you look at a lot of the websites, people are choosing 50-50 between both teams. Do you look at goaltending? Do you look at power in the front? I mean, Barry Trotz he's your go-to guy. If you had to pick a regular season coach that's been unreal in the last 5 years, it's between him and Bruce Boudreau. But the way Barry Trotz separates himself from the rest of the pack is how well he gets his teams prepared for the playoffs. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. The Islanders, I predicted them, I think, 27th or something in the league this season, which doesn't look good for me, but that's pretty much where everyone else had them. Now, Barry Trotz comes in, Lou Lamoriello comes in as the general manager, and all of a sudden they're a good defensive team. They went from the worst defensive team in the NHL last year to the best defensive team in the NHL this year. I mean, that's pretty much all on Trotz, but in terms of the series, I think the Penguins are going to win this one. They've got the star talent, Malkin, Crosby, Kessel, and then you add Jake Gensel in there. I think he's kind of a forgotten man at times because he plays with Sidney Crosby, but I don't think that matters. He's put up 40 goals this year. His 42 points in 37 career playoff games. It's not just Crosby. This guy's for real. The Penguins have been there before. They've done everything. I'm not sure about the Islanders' goaltending, Thomas Greiss and Robin Lehner. Their last few seasons weren't great. This year, all of a sudden, they have unreal numbers. I'm not sure that's sustainable in the playoffs, especially against Matt Murray, who has shown up in the playoffs before. So I like the Islanders. They're a real good story this year, but the Penguins are just such a good team.
There's a lot more firepower dressed in the Penguin uniform when you talk simply about Crosby and Malkin and Getsel. I mean, the leading goal scorer, point scorer for the Islanders is Matty Barzal, and he's only had 62 tallies for the year, and you can't really expect, he's a second-year player to lead that squad. I don't think having Andrew Ladd is a negative or a positive. I think he'd be someone that has a lot of experience in the locker room, even though he's out for the season. But, I mean, you talk about the Penguins being there, they are the longest playoff streak with 13 consecutive playoff seasons in a row. So, I mean, they've got the talent, they've got the pedigree, and outside of them losing last year to Washington in the conference finals, they could have been in that Stanley Cup final as well. So I agree with you. Penguins probably in 5 or 6. We'll leave the final Eastern Conference matchup because that's your team to watch. Let's quickly head over to the Western Conference. Calgary winning the entire conference, 107 points. They're taking on the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche got a welcome re-addition to the team with their captain Landeskog coming back in the last week or two. Do you see, Calgary hasn't been there in a while. Colorado is just their second year in a row. I kind of think this might be a 1-8 upset. What do you think?
Well, like some of the other series, the teams are so close right now. Lots of it might come down to goaltending, and both these teams, the goaltenders it's very unclear. Colorado, it's a bit of a tandem between Philip Grubauer and Semyon Varlamov, and in Calgary, it's Dave Riddick and Mike Smith. Both, they've all had up and downs this season, and we're not really sure what to expect from any of those four goalies, but up front, Calgary's just deeper. They've got the top line like Colorado has. Calgary has Gaudreau, Monahan, Lindholm. I think they can match them there, but the rest of their forwards is better than Colorado. They're deeper. Defense has produced much better this year. I think they're just further ahead than Colorado right now.
So they definitely have better, you say the front and the back side are on the Calgary Flames. They'll win that battle for sure. But like I agree, you talk about goaltending. If you have a hot goaltender, I mean, if Varlamov starts playing hot, I don't see, Riddick or Smith meeting the match. And, I mean, he's done it in the past. And I think that's what the series is going to come down to. I don't know if it'll go 4. It might go 6 or 7. But I agree, Calgary's a much deeper team, and they've got that, Giordano at the back could be that Norris Trophy winner this year. Colorado's got that unreal front line. And having Landeskog back is a huge plus. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm gonna say that'll be my my heavy lifting choice of the first round to possibly be an upset. And having that said, let's get to the Sharks and the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights were there in the final. San Jose finishes higher in the standings, but again, I mean, talk about goaltending, talk about defense, talk about being there in the past. I mean, both teams played each other, I think, 5 times this year, and they've got a pretty good battle between the two. I mean, San Jose was 2-2 on them. I mean, it was a pretty close one, and they're saying the Knights possibly winning in 7. What's your thoughts about San Jose pulling up that one?
I'm really pumped for this series. I think it was a bit of an underrated series last year when they matched off in the second round, I believe. Obviously, it's the later start, so the games are on later, so it doesn't have the attention of the Toronto or Winnipeg games, but this series is going to be big. It's going to be fast. It's going to be skilled. I'm not sure if San Jose is going to pull it off. Their blue line coming into the season was so hyped. They had Burns, Vlasic, Karlsson. They haven't meshed. Erik Karlsson they're hoping he's going to be back for game 1, but all season he hasn't looked healthy. I can't imagine all of a sudden he turns the switch and he's healthy now. They're going to try to win one for Jumbo Joe Thornton this year, but Vegas, I mean, how can we count them out? Every time anyone counts them out, it seems like they're proving them wrong. Their second line of Paul Stastny, Max Pacioretty, and the third man there, Mark Stone, who they just traded for. That's an insane second line. I'm not sure if San Jose is going to get it because you just can't count out Vegas.
No. I like the way Tuck played last year in the playoffs. He's a big body, similar to what Burns does for the Sharks. I mean, you talk about Karlsson, 3 goals only this year. He had 42 helpers. A lot of help, but he wasn't that goal-scoring kind of figure that San Jose thought he was going to be. And, I mean, you talk about the experience between Jumbo Joe and that whole repertoire of San Jose players. They're an older team, and they have that season, but, I mean, I think it's going to come down to goaltending again. If Fleury starts hitting that hot switch, I mean, that was the thing that Winnipeg ran into last year. They had an amazing run up until the point they hit Fleury and the hot goaltending between the pipes. So I agree with you. These later starts, it's going to send my curfew past midnight, but it's for a good reason because these games are going to be pretty hot to trot and they're going to be fun. So looking forward to another good series. Nashville, Dallas. Nashville is not our nemesis. Dallas is our kryptonite. Whoever wins this will probably play us in the next round. Having that said, Nashville was 3-2 over the season against Dallas. What can you say about Dallas? I mean, whatever talk they had in the middle of the year about not being focused and their goal scorers not working, Seguin and Ben stepped it up. I'm kind of surprised I've seen Spezza as a healthy scratch, but maybe they're resting him for this playoff run. Goaltending, I mean, both these goaltenders for Dallas should be winning the Jennings trophies, considering how well they've played over the last, 68, 70 games. Bit of an early rough start for the Dallas Stars, and they finally got out of the water and started skiing a little better. Dallas, do you think they could run away from Nashville and kind of upset them, or is Nashville too strong up front and Pekka Rinne is going to show up for one series?
I can't see it. I don't see Dallas as a deep enough team. They've got Tyler Seguin, they've got Alex Radulov, but Jamie Benn hasn't really showed up this year as the reports have been saying, and really Nashville, they've got an insane blue line. They've got Rene and net. They're not the best offensive team, but I think they can neutralize and do better than Dallas in the goal scoring front. And really, this is going to be a series where Nashville hopes to get some of their goal scorers going for the second round, I think, where they're either going to play St. Louis or Winnipeg. And if they can get some of their guys rolling, I think that's maybe the key for this series for them.
Yeah, you quickly touched on the defensive core for the Predators. Yossi, Subban, Ellis, and Ekholm is the top 4 out of 6. I mean, they're going to plug minutes out of those 4 guys, and you could see all 4 of them probably ranking between 22 and 27 minutes respectively. And yeah, they're deep up front. I mean, it's amazing what Arvidsson has done. I mean, he's probably the best game per goal scorer this year. He missed I don't know how many games, but he was like 0.8 goals per game, which was sick. It was almost as high or higher than Ovechkin this year. And you throw Turris is going to get healthy, and the other front there, they've got some strong guys. And yeah, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. But, I mean, Dallas, who knows? I mean, that's why when you get in, you get in. You never know, right? And
yeah, exactly.
So another exciting series. We've left 2 series each from the East and 1 from the West. Would you like to touch on your boys or my boys next?
Maybe let's go Leafs first.
Okay, so the Leafs are playing their kryptonite and their nemesis, Keep Calm and Bergeron and the Boston Bruins. However, the firepower of Toronto should wake up and could possibly out-pellet Boston, I think, and take that series in 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's a real interesting matchup because it's the same as last year. Everyone's talking about the Leafs Game 7 collapse last year, but people are forgetting that they were in Game 7 against Boston. They were leading against Boston in Game 7 last year in the third period. And now they add John Tavares, who he's over a point per game in his playoff career. He's a game changer. They add Jake Muzzin to their defense. He's a game changer on defense. I don't see how Boston's the runaway favorite here because Toronto's such a deep team offensively. Boston has that one dangerous line, but after that, I don't really see them as that dangerous of an offensive team. Toronto, they come at you with Tavares' line, Matthews' line, Nazem Kadri's checking line, who may play against Bergeron's top line. And I can't see how Boston's going to shut down Toronto here.
I agree. I mean, take out those first 3 or 4 forwards for Boston, and I mean, Toronto goes a lot deeper. The pickup of Jake Muzzin, the re-addition to Gardner, getting him back a couple games before the playoffs started, I think is a huge plus for him, getting his legs under him a little bit. And I mean, Morgan Rielly, we haven't talked much about lately, but he came out of the gates flying as that first half of the season, being the Norris Trophy winner, and they've got a little bit of depth on defense. I mean, I like Charlie McAvoy, don't get me wrong, but I think Zdeno Chara is getting too old for what he's doing. And, I mean, if Anderson can play better than Boston netminders, I think the Leafs have a chance to really take this one over. And they could win this in 6 or 7. I think that's probably going to happen. I think they've got better coaching, too. I mean, Babcock's been with this team now 2 or 3 years now, 2 years. And he really has an understanding of what these guys can do. And I think he can motivate them the right way in a series against one team for quite a while. So, props to your Leafs to getting out of the first round. Let's see it happen.
Yeah, I think so too. The D-core for the Leafs, it's so much talked about how much it struggled. I think they're really a bit more than the sum of its parts. The first pairing concerns me a bit. You got Morgan Rielly, who's probably going to be a Norris candidate this year. But he's playing with 38-year-old Ron Hainsey. Ron Hainsey, he can still play defense, but he can't skate. And to have him on your first pairing against a high-octane offense like Boston, that could be troublesome. But then you look further down that defense, Muzzin and Zaitsev, they've turned into a good shutdown pair. And then that leaves Gardner and Dermott, which That's got to be one of the best third pairings in the league. And when you're talking about that, I think maybe the Leafs defense is better than we're giving it credit for.
Yeah, no, I think I could see Muzzin and Zaitsev shutting down Bergeron's line. They're playing as much as they can against those two. You talk about that experience, that playoff experience that Muzzin brings to that second pairing, and I mean, it's only going to feed off, and hopefully he can be that leader in the locker room for Riley and Gardner. So, I mean, I think it could happen. But it's going to come down again to how well they can, calm that Bergeron storm, so to speak. So, it's going to be some fun stuff starting on Thursday for those guys, that's for sure. Now we leave it to last. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Last but not least, our Jets versus the Blues. And it was kind of interesting seeing these three teams, them, the Blues, and the Preds, kind of vying for that top spot. And when I look over the course of the year, and I look at the regular and overtime wins for the Jets being 3 more than either of those teams, even though they finished 1 point behind Nashville. And you look at Nashville now taking on the kryptonite of the Jets, and the Jets' record against the Blues this year was more favorable than playing the Stars. So, I mean, you're taking a hot goalie that's 24-5-1, an amazing goals against average under 2, and Binnington's never played a playoff game. And the Blues, outside of Tarasenko and a couple of other players, I don't see them as being as deep. I see them getting lucky, but I don't see them being that team that can knock off 4 full lines of offense for the Jets.
Oh, that's interesting. Totally depends if the Jets get their offense rolling, because Scheifele, he's got 6 points in his last 12 games. Laine, he's got 1 goal in his last 19 games, or we look a bit further back, he's got 5 in his last 37. So if the Jets aren't scoring, if their top players aren't scoring, then St. Louis is going to be able to match them past their first line. And you're talking about the goaltenders. Yeah, he's been amazing this year. He's got a 189 goals against average, 927 save percentage. He's been among the league's best goaltenders since being called up. Hellebuyck, he's struggled all year, really. He started cold, and he never really picked it up. He's got a 913 save percentage, 290 goals against average. I'm a bit concerned about Hellebuyck in this series, especially against a hot goaltender like Binnington. You never know if the pressure of playoffs gets to Binnington, but right now you might even have to give the edge in net to St. Louis.
I definitely give the edge to St. Louis, but I mean, it's going to come down to whether or not the second season for Binnington and that different type of stress between the pipes compared to the discussions and how powerful the Jets are, not just all season, and they haven't had a great March and April. Neither has the Predators, neither has the Sharks. I mean, when push comes to shove, as a team, are you able just to throw that all away and say, okay, that's 82, tomorrow is game 1? And you look at how well Hellebuyck's played compared to, the rest of the season. He has been playing better. He did get his 2 shutouts of the year back-to-back in March. And that was also the fact that he knew he wasn't going to have his backup in Laurent Brossoit behind him should something go wrong. We all found out that Comrie is not an NHL-style goaltender. And as much as I hate those dinky goals, the ones that are the sharp angle ones, crosses the red line, it's a goal. We found that out with Rene last year. Hellebuyck, if he can sharpen up his game, I think can outdo it. And like you said, if our first line, second line aren't scoring, it's gonna be a more difficult series for the Jets. I agree. You touched on Laine being 4 in the last 35, which is
7.
Yeah, it's awful. Even he had 5 goals against St. Louis, earlier in the year. I just think the Jets match up a little bit better outside of Pietrangelo on defense. I mean, Byfuglien can keep his attitude and his motions in check. Hopefully getting Tanev back sooner, because Tanev is a lot more of a better player, energy player than Par Lindholm as far as I'm concerned. And then seeing Morrissey hopefully getting back in the first couple of games would be nice too, because he's missed quite a bunch over the last 40, I think. So, I mean, we are missing a couple holes, but I think we're still a deeper team to go through 6 or 7 games against one team to come out on top.
Yeah, it's when Morrissey comes back, hopefully it's going to be for game one. You got to hope that he's going to shore up some of their defensive holes from the last month. The Jets have been giving away pucks at a rapid pace in their own end. Just awful breakout passes at times, right onto the other team's stick. But they actually gave up the third most goals for Western Conference playoff teams, the Jets did. So that's a bit concerning. St. Louis, they're good on the back end. They've got Pietrangelo, Parayko, Edmondson. They're a really good defensive team. I think this series is really going to come down to the Jets scoring guns and whether they get going, because otherwise St. Louis could surprise them if they don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of the Canadian press takes them at 6. TSN's got the Jets and the Blues at 50-50. I mean, it's all in the matter of saying, okay, who's going to stay healthier, who's going to get the players back, and more importantly, are the big guns going to start scoring goals? And that's going to be the big push for the Jets, I think. So we've touched on them all. We've hit all 8 series. Our favorite teams, our Leafs and our Jets, are hopefully going to make it through the first round. We'll see what happens. It all starts tomorrow night with a whiteout. Games will start 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock, respectively. Quick thought on the 8:30 games for Game 2 and Game 4. Do you like them? Do you not like them? I mean, is it because the media is now taking over NHL scheduling, or should the scheduling be doing vice versa?
Yeah, that's interesting that Game 2 is going to be on 8:30 Friday night. It's maybe a bit more of a party atmosphere, maybe the street party Friday night. It's interesting. I guess they want the earlier games to be prime time, 6 o'clock, and Jets doesn't really fit in for that. So I think they have to bump them back to the later start.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well they come out of the gates at a later time on a Friday compared to that normal start time on Wednesday. So just a quick thought on that one. And then, yeah, I mean, it's going to get crazy. It's going to get hectic. Whiteouts galore starting tomorrow downtown. So playoffs are done. Well, talking about them at least. Let's heavy lift some work here into the draft lottery. Again, it's the second most important day of the year for those teams that don't make the playoffs, because you see how they're going to transpire and see how the picks are going to flop through here. And it came down to the Rangers and the Devils, 2 Eastern Conference teams. And really, I mean, talk about the luck of the draw for the Devils. They have the second number 1 pick in the last 3 years, taking Nico Hischier a couple years back, and now they get the first pick again. My question to you, Anthony, are you going to take Hughes, or are you going to make a surprise and trade it, or perhaps move to Capo Keiko from the Finland top division TPS Liga?
New Jersey's going to be taking Jack Hughes. They have to. When you look at this rebuild, they made the playoffs last year. Now they're far from it this year. This team needs some high-end skilled players. They got Taylor Hall, they got Nico Hischier, but to add in Jack Hughes, that's just another elite level player you got. He's fast. He plays a possession game. He's amazing on his edges. His puck handling's out of this world. He's a competitive player. He opens up space for his teammates. I'm not sure he's as good as McDavid or Austin Matthews. He may not be a generational talent, but he's going to be an elite number 1 center and probably the next best thing to McDavid.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the skills, he's got the edges, he's got the movability, the capability, the ability to move around in that top 3 forward spot for the Devils. Any chance Vancouver trades his brother to New Jersey?
They interviewed Jim Benning at the lottery, and he said it would be hard to move up there. I don't see it happening.
Okay, you don't see the Hughes connection starting in New Jersey, though?
That would be great to see them play together, but I can't see it happening. But the lottery, it's changed quite a bit over the years. We used to always see the number 1 pick staying at number 1. Now all of a sudden we see Chicago jumping from 12 to 3, New York jumping from 6 to 2. I think that's exactly what the NHL wants. They want to eliminate tanking. I think if you look at the MLB, I'm not sure if you follow baseball that closely, but about 2/3 of the teams are actively trying to tank because they think they don't have a shot at winning, so they're not going to try to win. And I think the NHL is putting a mindset in all 31 teams that they have a chance to win, and I think it's a good thing for the league.
I totally agree. I think the opportunity and the fact that you're giving the worst team only an 18.5% chance to get that number one pick. And you touched quickly on the MLB. Baseball is a totally different animal. And when you really think about the top 10 players that are coming out of the baseball and the NCAAs and all their different development leagues, those 10 players, I mean, they choose, a lot of them are two-sport athletes as well. I mean, case in point, Kyler Murray, who was the Heisman winner, going to the A's and telling Oakland to stick it while he goes and tries to make the first pick of the NFL draft later on this month. And, I mean, you talk about teams that, 12 moving to 3, 6 to 2. The Kings are sitting at 5. The earliest team in Canada is going to be Edmonton at 8. So, I mean, there's 7 teams from the States that are getting the top 7 picks. I mean, Edmonton sits at 8, Vancouver 10, and Montreal at 15. So, I mean, not to say that there's a lot more American teams in the top 15 drafts, but 15 spots. But I mean, the fact that you've got that opportunity to move ahead and move substantially ahead is more exciting for the draft lottery, and I totally agree with you.
It's definitely it's the good news for Canada that they're not in the top 7, because we saw just a few years ago Leafs and Jets picking 1 and 2. So it's good to see them. It's good to see them in the playoffs rather than in the lottery.
Absolutely. So, no, I'm totally down for it. I think it's a great idea. I like the setup. I haven't watched much of Kako's schedule or his playing this year. He is number 1 in the International Skaters Division. I mean, 22 goals, 45 games. He's got a size a lot bigger than Hughes, sitting at 6'2", 194 right now. But, I mean, he could be that guy that, he's kind of that anomaly. You don't really know what he's going to bring to the NHL game. But nonetheless, 2 very talented players sitting 1 and 2. And I'm pretty sure those Eastern Seaboard teams and the Devils and the Rangers are looking forward to picking earlier in this year's draft. So we'll leave it at that, Anthony. I really appreciate your talk. We'll do this after the round 1 is set up and talk more about round 2 and kind of what's going on for draft season to see who's moving around, see if we get some interest in some WHL action, because their draft is going to be happening here at the beginning of May, and we'll see what things transpire here for the first round for our 2 teams, the Jets and the Leafs. Any last words?
Great to talk again. I can't wait to finally get the puck dropped for playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to get exciting tomorrow. Thank you again. We'll talk to you soon. This has been Heavy Lifting with Theo the Juggernaut and my boy Anthony, from NHL.discussion. Check him out on Instagram. If you haven't followed him, NHL.discussion. He's got some giveaways. He's got some true hockey going on, some sweaters going on. Anything else going on with the Insta page, Anthony?
I think you just about covered everything there.
Well, I'm glad to be in the know, put you in the know. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening, and good luck with the teams. Enjoy the playoffs, and peace out.